Hi guys, today's the 8th of January 2020 at 5 minutes past 8 in the evening over here in the UK. I've got a quick interpretation. I'm looking out for a blackout scenario, possibly caused by a cyber attack between now and the 9th of January. This is generally taken from the number 27, which is one of the numbers that I've taken from this scene here. I think the blackout would be associated with Texas and, the Rio Grande and the power plant meltdown and all of that scenario we've talked about before. 27th of December on the Julian calendar is the 9th of January. So if the number 27 has any significance, I think this is one of the last times it can be used. The only other time it can be used is after the year of the pig ends, if you continue to count the remaining days left on the Julian calendar, which is 13 days left, which would obviously include the 27th of January. That would take you up to February the 8th. I'm not sure that needs to be done. However, just putting it out there for those who would like to know all of the interpretations that are available there. Not sure why this copy thing is coming up. I'll get rid of some of these things. Okay, there we go. So 1227 is the 9th of January, and we've got all these different connections in terms of the images to death. Maybe Donald Trump. I don't think so. Not on the 9th. But there's all these connections to death. You've got this one here, this one here, this one here as well. The eyebrow and the gun hidden by the shark behind the George Bush character's head. The hangman. The hangman's the one that interests me the most because it connects with this one over here as well. The hangman is not just a reference to death and hanging, but is also, in my opinion, a broken circuit. Just, like simple one, bulb, battery, switches, it's not connected. Over here, this one again with the whole Texas reference, the goat being a kid, kid in a box, kind of references kids in cages, the whole fencing, the border, emergency lighting, the nuclear plant in the background looking like the Twin Towers to give us that connection to 9/11, seems to suggest a blackout because of the emergency lighting. So you've got the blackout over here, and you've got the hangman looking like a broken circuit over here. Now obviously there are other date interpretations for this event, but I was looking at the 10th of January, and the 10th of January seems to be one of the easier ones to interpret because of the eclipse connection. Now the Heliofont title suggests the final eclipse is something to look out for and be aware of. The final eclipse in 2019 was on December the 26th, but we are still within the year of the pig until January the 24th. So the last eclipse within the year of the pig would be January the 10th. It's a partial lunar eclipse. With that reference, it's also obviously a full moon, and we've got that over here. We've got the buoy flying up, and the buoy seems to suggest some sort of collateral damage after an attack, with both Iran and the United States saying that they've kind of paused things at this time. There needs to be something occurring before that for that to happen. So my thoughts are, many fish, my thoughts are maybe there is a cyber attack. It may not be by Iran, but it seems to be potentially on the cards. Cyber attack that causes a blackout, maybe in Texas, maybe somewhere else, maybe smaller, maybe bigger, hopefully not bigger, but something like that happens. And then we have the scenario where, even though that it could have possibly already unfolded, we have a scenario where we have an attack possibly linked with a mosque or some sort of cultural site. And I say cultural site purposefully because that is language that has been used in the media recently in reference to Donald Trump and his threats against Iran. So if there is a cyber attack causing a blackout, and that is then followed by an attack on Iran which causes collateral damage, Iran has this 3 days of mourning kind of thing before they do anything. So if the 10th included the morning day, I'm not sure it does, but if it does, then we've got 1, 2, 3, and then potentially action, or it could be 1, 2, and the 13th could include the third day, where there could still be action. This is New Year's on the Julian calendar. The reason it's significant is because over here in one of the scenes that's connected with Iran, potentially coming out and blocking the Strait of Hormuz, firing missiles and uniting organizations, terrorists, and all sorts across the region. There's the 31 reference up in the clouds here. Now, obviously, it's a reverse thing. It's the 13th of January on the Gregorian calendar, but it's the 31st of December on the Julian calendar. So we're hitting a 13 and a 31, same as up here in the nuke, which again, I can't remember the name, I do apologize, but one of the YouTubers has suggested looks like a boat, and my interpretation in connection with that is a USS aircraft carrier, maybe the USS John McCain. I don't think it's in the region, but it doesn't mean it can't be, by the 13th. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the Strait of Hormuz. There are ballistic missiles potentially could be hit where it may be if it's close enough to the region. You've got the ICBM launches and this, the shark representing the submarine. Again, that could reference SLBM launches. So there's a lot still to potentially watch out for, even though there's a quiet in the hostilities, and I do obviously hope that cooler heads prevail and that it continues to move towards more peaceful times. I'm not stupid, so I'm not going to rest easy, especially within this watch period while all of this activity is going on. So just for a quick recap, potentially looking out for blackout caused by a cyber attack somewhere in the United States, maybe in the UK, I don't know, but it seems to be more United States, Texas based. Because of that, an attack on Iran, potentially involving a cultural site, maybe they call it a military site, that's being, used as a cultural site, and because of that, there's collateral damage. That collateral damage we could see occurring on the 10th. So because of time zones, the 9th and the 10th could be very significant in terms of an attack on Iran and collateral damage and the cyber attack. 3 days of mourning onto the 13th, which is also the 31st of December, New Year's Day on the Julian calendar. That's when we could see Iran coming out, aircraft carriers in danger, the Strait of Hormuz blocked off, oil slowing down. So there's a lot to watch out for. Just before I skip over all of that, actually, there's the 11th, which is one of the more significant dates I've got because of the 012 reference, which I've said many times could be 0111. That's the potential for tsunami. Looks like it's connected with a volcano, could be a mega tsunami. We've also got the volcanic potential depiction over here in the background. If that's the case, I think this lady's connected with Egypt, the scarab beetle, the wrapping up of the body, all of that seems to be very Egyptian. In the background, the volcano, it could be connected with like a very far background scene, like over in Italy, for example, Mount Etna. But I've also been toying with the idea of Mount Sinai as well, potentially being involved in this whole thing. I haven't quite broken that all down, but just for those of you who don't know, Mount Sinai is basically the place where people say that Moses received the 10 Commandments, obviously with the manipulation of the Bible and, the way that these people like to work. Having something like that involved in maybe being destroyed is, potentially very significant. So that's, again, just something I'm putting out there, putting to the side. I'll do a little bit more research on that and see what I come up with. There is one more thing I wanted to mention just before I go, actually. Looking out for the blackout scenario on the 9th of January, between the 8th and the 9th, but 1227 connects to the 9th. So looking out for that blackout scenario on the 9th of January, that's 1920 for the year, January the 9th, 2020. Just doing a little bit of research, 1920 is the year that electricity basically boomed. It's when the automobile came about, the airplane, wash machine, the radio, television, refrigerator, basically everything electrical that we kind of have now grew from the 1920s. And if there is a blackout cyber attack that causes power plant meltdowns and electricity to become unavailable, then that's really kind of a reference to sending you back to the 1920s, or just prior to the 1920s, before electricity and gadgets became very widespread and available to the public. Again, it's just another potential manipulation of history, of events. We know that in the classroom, in the iPad Go 2 video, there's the chart at the very top with the chart of evolution, with an arrow pointing to a period before electricity. So again, if there is a blackout or cyber attack that causes a blackout on the 9th of January, then that is a reference to the 1920s, which again is just the year that inventions in electricity took off. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.